Good morning and welcome to Sunday Coffee. Joining per usual for a cup of coffee is the benevolent future governor of Virginia, TK Eppley. Today we're going to be talking about why do eagles fly alone? I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
Good morning, TK. How's it going? Oh, we'll find out here in a moment whether or not I got this sound thing figured out here. See if our sound engineer, Stoney, winds up coming on and telling us how it sounds this time. He's not on yet. He's still not on. He's slacking. I know, and it's probably too cold for him to be down at the river this morning. So it's probably too cold for him to be down at the river this morning. Well, since you're, not at the beach, did you get them to ship you coffee, or are you having to do some local Ann Arbor coffee? Zingerman's roasts his own beans. I don't know if you've had any of their coffee yet. Oh. Okay. Well, there you go. Oh, very nice. Well, let's see. We finally got a viewer showing up. Nope, that one's on Facebook. Or normally Stoney pops in on Twitch. Yeah, because he's doing all that gaming, so it's just easy for him. Oh yeah, he's a big gamer. No, I have no idea. But the only thing about Twitch that I know, it's basically where everyone goes to live stream their games. That's about it. Oh, I had the wrong mic chosen. We'll see what happened there for me. Hopefully now I sound better. It's like every time I leave StreamYard, I gotta reset up everything all over again. It doesn't remember the previous settings. I don't know why.
That's odd.
Just something and it's only been since having to use this Sound Blaster, which, hey, that's fine.
It's like a lot of things, is that piece of software designed for what you want to use it for?
Yeah. Who knows? But I mean, the Sound Blaster is a little bit better. Oh, that's probably Stoney. So hopefully Stoney will give us a sound check to see if the governor over here is sounding all right. So how's he sounding out there, Stoney? I'm assuming that's you. I don't know anyone else on Twitch except my kids.
Except every other 13-year-old in town.
Yeah, basically. So I keep seeing this this short.
Sounds much better.
All right, good. So I keep seeing this short from Dan Pena and about eagles flying alone, and I started kind of thinking about this and was curious because I've always kind of said I don't count friends. I make sure the friends I have count.
Right.
And
you and I are like that. We're both like that.
Yeah, I don't have very many. I certainly have a lot of acquaintances, but even many times, when the missus and I got together, she always wanted to throw all these cookouts, parties, stuff like that, and I'm like, I just not something I mean, I don't mind doing it. I don't mind going to them, but I genuinely do not like people that don't have substance.
Right.
And I don't mean, hey, they don't have to be some millionaire. They don't have to have been in the Navy, some tech wizard. No, someone of substance. You could be a math teacher in high school, and you just want to be the best math teacher in high school that has ever walked the earth. Okay, I want to go talk to that person.
Right. It's about achievement, right? That's really what you're talking about. Is like whatever your chosen field. When I think in society, especially with social media, where nobody ever has a bad day and everything is about the upside of your life, not the downside, that we get trapped in, we get trapped in the bling of life, whether it's work wise or money or anything else. Whereas, hey, who are just good people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I said, we were talking about one of the folks that works at a restaurant here in Ann Arbor, and just a good person, right? Shows up, works hard, takes care of his kids, all that stuff. It's like the old Chris Rock line. I take care of my kids. You don't get credit for doing what you're supposed to do, but you should be docked major points for not doing it.
Right, right. And
Right.
and so I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, so this whole analogy of eagles flying alone, because well, eagles don't fly in flocks. They're soaring that sky up, circling, waiting to see what kind of animal they're going to eat next. Like
Right.
that's what they're doing. And so I was, talking to the missus. I'm like, well, so you've kind of realized now over the past several years um, that you don't really have very many friends. You've got two. And I said, and count yourself lucky that you have two really good friends that you can count on and that they can count on you.
Right.
Because there's everyone else, you now know, they just they only call when they need something. They only call to see, hey, when are you throwing your next party? But yet they've never invited you to any of theirs.
Yeah. I went through this a few years ago where I said the same thing. I have a buddy of mine that we've known each other for 30 years, and every time the phone rings, I'm like, hey, what do you want? He's like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, well, you don't call when you're going to go out and have a good time with, you never call me. So what do you need? Because that's the only time I ever hear from you anymore.
Yeah. And then so I even started thinking about this from a professional standpoint. I really don't associate even professionally with people that are outside of the ones that I mentor, right? Because also I believe that they're going to be rock stars. So
Right.
slightly different with that. But I don't go and socialize with them outside of work. I mean, we may go to lunch, breakfast, but like I'm not going to have a drink with them.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with doing those things. I just think that to me that's just where my own line is. Unless it's like one of their birthdays and they invite me, I will come for like a drink and then leave because I just don't feel like, hey, the boss should be hanging around.
Right.
Let the folks let loose. I shouldn't see them ever in a different light, and nor should they. It's there's got to be some type of barrier.
Okay.
But just that's just how I am. Teach their own on that part. But socially, like professionally, going to do something. I don't really hang out with people that are maybe, but not even actually very few that are even just like one position level below me. It's typically peers or people who are where I feel better in life, CEOs, things of that nature. So that way I can, try to pick up something from them.
Right.
But, I don't really tend to do much below me.
I, I think it depends, right? I mean, I think if you look at, like when we worked together, at a certain point in time when the company was small enough, everybody was hanging out with everybody else because we were kind of all in the fight together,
Yeah.
right? And then as the company got bigger, it kind of started to stratify itself, right? And there's, I think eventually what happens is in any group, anyway, if you're a high functioning person, you start gravitating towards, or people start gravitating towards you based on the fact that you're a high functioning person or you're aspiring, right? And in aspiration, people are like, okay, what are they doing to be better, right? They're going somewhere. They might not know exactly. I don't have to know where I'm going to be 10 years from now. I just have to know that the step I'm taking today is making me better than I was yesterday.
Right.
And yes, I can have a plan, but what happens in 10 years, right? And we might not know that today, right? It's just, I think it's the same way when you come up with a product roadmap or something, especially in like software, people like want to have a 3-year roadmap. Like, you have no idea what's going to be happening 3 years from now. Right? We need to get through this year and have some idea what we're going to start off with in the next year. And I think with life, you can have a plan, and you're like, okay, I know that to execute that plan, it's going to take, like getting your doctorate, it's going to take 5 years, it's going to take 6 years, or whatever it takes. But you don't know where you don't know everything that's on the road you're on, and that's part of life, right? And I think that's a great part of life. I don't have to know how I might know how it explicitly ends, like in the case of education. I mean, here's the goal I want. I know what to think, but I have part of the concept of achievement is I don't know everything along the way. That's why I'm on this path, because I need to learn, right? And a lot of times, being aspirational and being high functioning requires you to do things alone, right? And that's that. And and a lot of this takes confidence, right? I don't mean arrogance. I don't mean hubris. It takes confidence. It means that I'm going to bet on me, right? The old joke, like sharks don't get up in the morning going out telling everybody they're a shark. They just get up and start biting people and eating things, right? Because that's what they do. And once you establish yourself in any, be it professional or personal setting, that you are aspirational and that you're an achiever, even when you're down, you're not out. And people can realize that, like, hey, you took a step back or a step sideways, you didn't fall in a crevice and not to be heard from the rest of your life, right? And what makes high achievers angry is, and it's a hard, because I've gotten the same mindset, is something happens where you have to take a mother may I step back, or 10 mother may I steps back, and while you're down and out, all the people that you helped along the way, they're not to be heard from. Right? That's how, when you say I've got 2 friends, I've got 3 friends. Well, guess what? When you were down, you found out who those folks were, right? Who your posse was, so to speak, right? And I think it's exceptionally difficult, that especially if you love somebody, right? If you love somebody, guy or girl, whatever, you have there's being friends with somebody, and then there's the brotherhood, there's love, of people and everything like that. If you in your heart love somebody, and then you feel they turn their back on you when you're down, and you're not asking for money, you're not, hey, every now and then I want to feel like I can grab your hand, I can get out of the hole for a while, right? Once you lose that with somebody, I think that's the really difficult, and that's the one that tears you up. That's the one that makes you angry. The other people, it's easy to go, okay, great. Now I know who you are. I'm going to put you over here. You'll be a good drinking buddy, or you'll be a good neighbor, but I'm never, ever going to count on you again. Yeah. Right? And I think that's really the difference. And that's why high functioning people end up a lot of times, they're not alone, but they may not look alone, but their mindset puts them in a place that they're not standing with everybody else.
Right. And it's I guess it's somewhat interesting to me as you were talking about whether or not, when you needed something and, get angry, upset, whatever it might be. I actually didn't when someone that I thought was close wasn't. I actually counted myself lucky, because now I know which category they fit in, and I don't ever have to worry about that ever again. So I was actually more relieved, because I'm going, okay, well, perfect. I now get to continue. I've only got 24 hours in a day. And so as that continues to find out who are the people that are worthy, I get to spend more of that time with people that truly matter. And so when someone gets out of it, I just go, perfect. Now I no longer have to invest in that individual anymore.
So now take that one step further. There's that friend group, and then professionally there's leadership, right? And what's one of the hardest things to do as a leader? It is to give effort to people that are not appreciative of it. right? And sometimes they're ignorant to what you're trying to do, and you just got to keep chipping away at them until they go, aha, now, because you believe you have, it's the old adage, you treat somebody like they are and they'll always remain the same. See in them what they can be and treat them that way, and they'll exceed what even you thought, right? Simon Sinek has this great line. He says, being a leader is not being in charge. Being a leader is taking care of those in your charge. And
Yeah.
sometimes the hardest thing to do if you consider yourself to be, or those around you consider yourself to be a high functioning leader, is you place great expectation on yourself, right? And it's the old Michael Jordan line, no matter what pressure, external pressure anybody can put on me, it'll never be as much as I put on myself to be successful. Right. And those, I from personal experience, I think sometimes you have to tamp that down and go, it's not, and just like sometimes I'll be, hey, I want to get somewhere, I want to do something. I think, okay, not today. Right. And kind of mellow yourself out, lower your blood pressure to a manageable level and go, not today. It is very hard sometimes as a leader when you, especially if you really look at somebody, somebody now in our, it's like somebody that's 25, 30, you're like, that person's going to be a rock star when they're 40. Right? Maybe they can't see it themselves yet. So how do I foster that? Right? And then you start trying to put effort in, and you don't see the direct result. All right. Well, hey, they're on their arc. They're not on yours.
Yep.
Right? And that's when you've got to go, okay, this isn't a me thing. This is a them thing. And that's when you have to be selfless as a leader.
And it's, I had someone recently leave. This person was a first-time manager. And when I hired this person, beforehand, I let them know, I said, look, I am going to be the most challenging person you have ever worked with because I'm going to expect greatness from you all the time, and it's going to be hard. You are going to have to figure out the lessons.
Right.
And it's not for everyone. People, tend to either love or hate working with me because I expect excellence all the time. Like never take a play off. And this individual, which I was actually doing quite well, but as a first-time manager, made mistakes. No big deal. Like we all make mistakes.
Right.
I always go, when with a, I don't yell at people. There's no sense in doing that. If they cared about their job, they're going to be beating themselves up. So I don't need to beat you up. Also, let's talk about the steps that cause the thing, so we know where the breakdown was. But the person put that in the beginning, I had set up a bunch of one-on-ones with them, as I do with all managers. But there's a limit. I do that with you for the first 90 days. I'll spend one-on-one time with you, 30 minutes every week, because you're not a direct report of mine. So at a certain point, I just want to make sure you're hearing the message clearly from me. You understand the expectations. We can talk about thought process, but your direct supervisor should be having more one-on-ones with you. And,
Right.
but if you want more of my time, you should come to me and say, hey, I want to, it's now, I need to have time with you. Okay, well, schedule something. And don't abuse it. Well, this individual did it a couple of times after that, and then stopped. But put on their exit interview that I didn't spend enough time mentoring them, and I went, well, I said, I guess this was oh, and they also put that I have my favorites, and so I'm talking to the HR person, and I'm like, well, they are right with the fact that I have my favorites, and
Everyone does.
I said, and they are, and I listed out the people's names, and the HR guy goes, well, why is that? I said, because they're rock stars. They're my top
Right.
performers. And so I tend to favor people who are top performers. Why? Because they're my top performers.
Right. Exactly.
If they leave, I'm screwed. And so I want to keep giving them more challenges and doing whatever it takes to keep them because they're rock stars.
Yeah. I think what you just said about the person that left is, it comes back to the old adage: the mentor never seeks out the mentee.
Yep.
Right? If you value somebody's opinion, that's really when you're looking for a mentor. You value somebody's opinion and the experience they've had, then it's up to you to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
I'll give it all to you, but I'm not going to go hunt you down to help, to work. Sometimes I will, because I'm like, especially because there's value in the education of, hey, this is where we're at, this is the path we're on together, right? And what do you, is this not something you want? Because if it's not, I'll put that aside and I won't continue to worry about it, because what you don't realize is when we're talking, I'm gathering ideas of how to help make you better, right? And I'm trying to parsec that so that I can do it in the confines of work and give you tasks that are kind of outside your lane. I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, I had one of the guys come to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about quitting. And he is one of the top performers, right? And I'm like, why? He goes, well, because I've been making mistakes lately and I feel like I'm letting the team down. Immediately, I love that guy, right? He was totally self-effacing and was just like, I'd rather leave than basically let the team down. And we walked through, and his boss was there, and we walked through like, okay, what are the mistakes? How are you doing it? And so I said, all right, man, you're not leaving. You're not going anywhere, right? I don't go. I'm not letting you leave. If I got to chain you to the building, you're not leaving. But I hear what you're saying, and then so I sat down with his boss, and then it was a learning event for him, saying, look, when he comes in and says something like that, what we have to do is here's somebody who wants to be perfect, right? They're not going to be perfect, but we can make them better, right? And put them in the middle of the road. And I said, the answer is not less responsibility, it's more. Right? And said, give him these things to do, right? What he thinks he's making mistakes at are somewhat, the process doesn't seem coherent to him right now, right? So let's make him part of the process, right? Take some of that off your plate, give it to him, and say, here, this is step one, this is the finished product. What do we do in between? Go look at what we currently do. And what we found was that some of the processes were anachronistic and needed to be updated. And then once he did that, and once he felt part of the thing, he's back to being a rock star again, right? But what he did was, in a very humble manner, seek out mentorship, right? And I love that. And a lot of people, when guys walk out and quit, or I'm thinking, well, where'd this come from? Or because they're too scared or intimidated, or they don't want to. They feel like, oh, I don't want everybody to know I'm stupid. I'll just go somewhere else.
Right.
And what's that going to help them for their next stop along the way? They're not going to achieve. They're going to go try to find something lateral, a little bit less challenging, because they feel they can't pick it up.
Yeah, and again, it's difficult, I say, for a lot of people to work for me, because I expect excellence. And the only way excellence can occur is by you also knowing that you deserve excellence and you need to achieve it, and it can only be achieved by growing. And so a lot of my managers and even people that fail, it's because they don't buy into, you must do 2 hours of formalized training per week on the job, right? On the job. I need you getting better, and it's a weekly goal. I don't care if the building is burning, get your 2 hours of training in.
Right.
The other thing is, like, if depending on which kind of manager, if you were my technology services folks, which has the help desk, stuff like that for reporting into them, the next thing I care about is just 100% accuracy. If I've got 100 tickets that are open, they should be 100 tickets that are open. I shouldn't go in there then look and go, oh, this printer in a particular location was down, and it was in July. I'm pretty sure that printer is probably back working right now.
Right.
Make it be accurate. I don't care how many tickets are coming in. That's fine. The manager's jobs is to triage. Okay, I want you working on this one today, Sally, and this one, Billy. You're doing this one, and that's what we're gonna do. 100% accuracy. That's all I ask, because people in that side of, like, the employees, I had all of my managers. We have an executive meeting on Wednesdays, and so I had all of my managers come in, which was going to be difficult for them. It was difficult even for myself, which is then to ask the executives, how do you feel about the services that IT is providing you? And no matter what the feedback is, positive, negative, please be specific. And I always told them, most people just care about the when. When are you going to get to them?
Right.
And so the majority of the feedback they got to hear was, hey, we get it. Like, you all are night and day different from where you all were, 2.5 years ago. You're understaffed. But everyone is super friendly with us. Bonus, because I always tell them, I don't care what happens. Your job is to be nice. My job,
Right.
I get to be the bad guy. You all have to be nice. And the second one was, we just want to know when you're going to get to us. When we go in to track it, we just don't see an ETA. We just want to know when it is. So if it's next week, just say, hey, it's next week. I'm like,
Right.
told you. Like, accuracy is all they care about, for the most part. I mean, there's going to always be ones that, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this now, but you get to see what's selfish. But it's still not easy. You don't know what what the executives could have come in and been like, hey, you all suck. They could have. But I said, look, Leo, that should make you feel amazing. One, the courage to sit there with no protection, because I've told you you're not allowed to be defensive.
Yeah.
You can only ask clarifying questions. That's it. It's all you get to do. And then just listen. It doesn't mean those people are right. It just means that from their perspective, they feel like something's missing. So our job is to ask clarifying questions and then consider what they say. It doesn't mean that they're right, but just consider it. Perhaps they had a bad day. We don't know what's going on in their life, but let's consider what they have to say and move on.
It's what I call, it's like considering someone else's prism, right? You don't know what lens other people are looking through, right? And sometimes it's say, hey, look, yeah, you waited until something was really bad and made it a fire that didn't have to be. In the future, come back and tell us. But I think a lot of times being able to listen to people that have angst about certain things is, okay, I wasn't considering the lens,
Yeah.
right? And again, it doesn't mean they're right, but it doesn't mean they're wrong. It means, hey, with the worldview that I have, this becomes a problem. Now, you can either fix the problem directly, or in most cases, hey, help change their worldview along the way.
Right. And it's, if you're striving for excellence, you want to hear the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
as I was telling at towards the end after the night, I kind of let my managers go so we could finish on with the exec meeting. It was 30 minutes, whatever you got to say it. But I had said to the rest of the executive team, I said, one of the things that we do in IT, because we're providing you all services. Now, we believe what we need to do next, but your feedback confirms or rejects what we need to do next. If we're both saying the same thing, then we're right. This is the next path we're going to go. But if we're not, that's where it's my job and my two top managers. That's when it's our job to figure out why is there a disconnect and where is the disconnect,
Right.
and then we go back and we adjust.
Right. I also think there's a little bit of that, average performers want to be left alone. Good performers want to be coached up, and great performers want to be told the truth.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
The ability that you created is kind of an after action scenario where, hey, you got to take your rank off. You got to open up your skin a little bit and be willing to challenge yourself when other people are challenging you.
Yeah, absolutely true. And that just kind of gets back to the why it's so hard to not surround yourself with just people, and as Dan Pena says, hang out and chill, right?
Right.
Because then what are you doing? Like, a top performer wants to figure out how to get back at it. And so when we were talking a little bit in the pre-show, I'm really proud of my middle stepson, because he wants to start, as with the jiu-jitsu classes, he wanted to go at the 5:30 in the morning class.
Right.
I'm like, hey, he's 13 years old. I got to get up. He has to get up by 4:30, which means he had to go to bed early.
Right.
All right.
Get after it, lad.
So when we were done, I said to him, you should be super proud of yourself right now. And he's like, why is that? I said, you just accomplished more before 6:30 in the morning than what most people in the world will accomplish all day long.
Correct. Because you're working on a goal. You're working on a goal, young man.
Yep. And
You know?
and that's a it's one of the things that I really agree with Jordan Peterson when he says this. It doesn't matter what time you want to get up in the morning. Pick a time, and then don't ever get up past that time.
Right.
If it's 10 a.m., fine. Don't ever get up at 10:01.
Right.
But pick that time, and as soon as you wake up, it's now about how quickly do you get to your first accomplishment, whatever that might be.
And it doesn't, they don't have to be. It's little wins build the big win, right? And that's it. Everybody's looking to hit the home run when, four singles still gives you a run.
Yeah, it's and that's why I think the further up you go in the hierarchy, of course you should have less people that you're surrounding yourself with. There can only be one number one.
Right.
Right? There's only one CEO. There's only one top of the pyramid.
Yep.
So, and yeah, that's why they say it's lonely at the top. Also, funny enough, was as I don't remember exactly how the saying goes, but I'll just go. The coward loves to see the hero fail and laugh at them when they do.
Yeah. It's old Teddy Roosevelt, man in the arena thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, now when the kind of culturally with social media and everything like that, we as a culture more look for people to fail, right? And a lot of it is an indictment on you as a person, not the person that you're hoping is going to be less than successful, right? Now there are people that it's kind of deviate from that a little bit. There are certain folks in life that when you look at them, you're like, okay, you got where you got not by hard work, but because you've learned how to work the system well enough, right? Those are, again, when you talk about, I can't do those people, right? And it's just, dude, like it comes back to this. There's no answer. Like, hey, most people in life spend a lot of time to create the appearance of competency. Why don't you just go out and be competent?
Well, they're not able.
I think you take all that time you were trying to put lipstick on a pig, and then actually work to be competent. Right, work to understand, and especially when you get up into the hierarchy, your CEO company and stuff like that. It's quickly, if you're doing it right, you're going to have technical experts, right, at the top of your divisions and whatever, however you do your thing. But those direct reports, I think you're going to have technical experts, and you have to be willing to go, hey, the reason I have you in here is because I don't know anything about that, or I have limited knowledge in that, and I expect greatness from you, and I expect you to give me the tools to defend you, right? Because that's really what it is. I don't need to know. In the case of what we do, I don't need to know how to explicitly bond all the carbon to our aircraft. But you know what? I have to have more than a passing understanding, so that we want new equipment, we're spending money and stuff like that. I know why we're doing it, because while I may be the senior guy in this building, I'm not the senior guy at the end of the day, right? Everybody has a boss. We all have a board we answer to, those type of things, right? And so help me to justify what we're doing so that I can get it. But you're right. I think if you're a good leader, and you're a good servant leader, right? To use probably a really popular term, meaning that you show up for everybody else because I'm not getting promoted again, right? And is this concept that everybody else is of great knowledge, and my job is solely to break ties. I have 4 direct reports, and if it's 2-2, it's my job to break a tie. Right? If it's 3-1 or 4-0, right? That's what we're going with, right? Because they're all eminently intelligent, thoughtful people that want to do great things. Right? And if you work from that premise as a leader, it allows you to be more giving and more open to new ideas, because I think a lot of leaders, and we've worked for one in particular, that no good idea wasn't his. And how limiting is that? Because once you establish that culture, what are you not going to hear? You're not going to hear good ideas anymore, because you're either going to get shit on, or wait a second, I just came up with that. Now he's or she are talking about it as if it's their own.
Yeah, I always say to my people, I said, you all make me look really, really good.
Exactly. Exactly.
You
When
know,
I was out in Arizona this weekend with the parent company. There was the thing. I go, look, this isn't about me. This is about this is about all the folks that work with us in that building, doing great things and imagining the next generation. It gives me great pride to pull up all the drawings for the next generation aircraft, and how, things that we're doing. Like, well, did you think? I'm like, no, of course I didn't think of that. Right? I kind of gave some guidance. So I go, here's what I'm thinking. Right? Here's what I'd like to see, and these are design cues, or these are things I think we need to get out of the aircraft, or put in the aircraft, or things like that. Some of it driven by demand, some of it driven by, here's what the aircraft used to be, here's what I think it needs to be. But at the end of the day, I'm like, take that and run with it how you see fit. Because like I said, I'm probably more equipped to deal with the avionics because it's a software package, and I can do that. But certainly we're building the aircraft and what we do. I have my opinions, but I also have a director of fabrication who's an eminently qualified engineer that I want to listen to what he has to say.
right. And I even go so far as to, not that I want to necessarily just break ties, because I also say from a technology perspective, I have ultimate veto power.
Oh yeah, I have one more vote than everybody else. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's an important part. Just because all of your people may want to do something, they still don't have the knowledge of what we know outside of that. And so, you're dealing with the board on a on a continuous basis. They don't get to hear those conversations, and even if and I know you're very transparent with your people, but it doesn't mean, like, you can tell them kind of what you heard, but it's not necessarily what you wind up really taking in, as to what parts that matter, because they don't get to see all the inflection, and so your decisions are going to be influenced by that. And so even though it's like the telephone game. So you may have said something to them which might have been different than what you actually heard, but not what you internalized.
Right.
So
that's the great, isn't that the great leadership conundrum? There's what I say and there's what people hear.
yeah.
And how quickly can I make those two things the same?
Yep.
Right? I mean, when I say I break ties, this is how I kind of do it. Because most of the time, you're right. If there's a tie, or even if there's a decision that's been made, sometimes when I'm like, okay, I see how you guys made that decision. That's a really good decision. But what if you all knew the following? And then I'll let them sit there for a minute and noodle. And I said, look, I'm going to walk out of my office. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. You guys talk amongst yourselves with the new knowledge you have on hand, because to me, this is what is important to the organization right now, because it's something you hadn't heard. So knowing what you know now, come back, and I'm going to go and come back in 5 or 10 minutes. And then I'll walk around the shop, or I'll go talk to, one of the other folks in the organization. And when I come back, they're usually making the decision I would make. They're coming to that agreement. And that, I think, as you build an organization and you build trust, right? They trust you and you trust them, right? It's not a one-way street where you give me everything and I'm not required to give you anything. In fact, I think it's the other way around, right? I'm going to start with treating everybody as a 4.0 student, and they got to work their way down. That they can come up with it periodically. I've told it, and you've heard me say this before, because we used to sit next to each other at the executive meeting.
I thought you sat next to me at the executives meeting, so I would stop telling people that was a really stupid idea. Why would you?
Well, there was part there. Yeah,
I'm like, did you really just consider that?
Everybody has to have their first C-level chair around the table. And there were some hurdles, right? But obviously everything worked out. But the more I can give you, the better decisions you're going to be able to make, right? And people think, like, especially, it's really bad in DC, right? Everything in DC, for example, is finite. Power is finite. If I have it, you can't have it, right? And so I I think one of the reasons that, like from the federal government's perspective, that we're so dysfunctional is people always look to have the upper hand, right? And the minute as a leader you can walk in and go, look, I don't know everything, but here's either, hey, I see comes down to this. So I've told everybody, you guys said you've heard this. I walk in, kind of here's how I am. Everything's up for discussion, right? Where I want to hear everyone's opinion. I want to hear their strategy. I want to hear all of that. But at some point, if I ever just walk into the room and say, hey, this is an arbitrary decision and this is what we're doing, and I don't pull that one out of the holster very often, it means, most likely it means I've been told what we're going to do, right? At some point it's like, hey, go in this direction. But every now and again it's like, today in this moment we have something to do that we have to expedite. I will explain to you later why I made this decision, and kind of here's my decision tree, but today I need you to execute on this because we don't have time to sit around and hold hands while we figure it out.
Absolutely. And I actually tell my folks, I was like, look, there's no sense. This is a directive. I've already, I was unable to convince, my boss, and I don't say boss in a negative term. That's just,
No, but that's it. I mean,
I was unable to convince.
I didn't go that far.
Well, I tell them, hey, look, this is the directive that came from above. I let them know. So this way it's like, look, sometimes I said, the only time you get to do whatever you want is when you're not taking money from someone else. Right? You start the company, you took no investors, you get to do whatever you want, whenever you want. The moment you take an investor or you work for someone else, you sometimes have to do things you don't want to do. That's called a job.
The customer, even under that scenario, the customer becomes the person you're taking money from, and you have to adjust what the business does according to your customer demand.
Yeah. Or you can close the doors, right? You still have that choice, because right.
If you want to run a viable business, you've not taken any investor money. At some point, when people start making that trade of product for money, what they think about the product bears weight.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so I just tell them, look, this is sometimes what's got to happen. But I've also find this is really interesting. And I wonder if it's like this in other segments of business, but I find an overwhelming majority of people in IT are scared of change as well. And I would have thought they would have been more comfortable with it, but they're not. It's very few. They don't want to change anything.
Right. There's a great video out there, and it's Steve Jobs, and this goes back into, I think, the 90s, like shortly, not so long after he came back for the second time, where one of the engineers stands up and he basically says, hey, I can't believe you're getting rid of this whatever piece of software they were embedding in something, and lays into him like in a way I wouldn't talk to somebody else even if I didn't like him. And then at the end of it, he goes, the other thing is, I'm just wondering what you've been doing for the past 5 years, making decisions like this, like really critical of him, right? The guy we used to work for would have lost his ever-loving mind and fired that individual on the spot, right? Steve Jobs sits there, grabs his water, takes the all-important pregnant pause by taking a big sip of water and slowly swallowing while he can get himself together. And then he comes back to proceed to talk about how hard everybody works and how they have ownership and pride in what they do. And he goes, there's technical things. He goes, I'm sure that's a really good product that we were putting in there. And then he started talking about vision, started talking about growth. And it comes down, that guy was so used to working on that. He was probably the best guy in the company on that one piece of software. And people came to him, thought of him highly for like his opinion and how to implement all this. And now they're going away from it. He wasn't mad that he wasn't mad at a technical choice. He was mad in the fact that now he's going to have to go learn something new before he gets that cachet of people knowing, hey, Bob's the guy that we need for this or that, right? I think a lot of it's the old, like in the Fed space back, 4 or 5 years ago, you used to hear, oh, cloud networks aren't secure. My thing was like, so you're telling me the NSA and the CIA spend about $800 million a year because it's not secure. Like, I don't even have to do the zeros and ones with you. right? Well, who was it? It was usually a GS 14 or 15 that was in their 50s. There was a CISSP and didn't want to learn anything new, right? Where then you take a guy like Stoney, and one day he woke up and goes, "Hey, this is going to be the next thing." And it became the Super Grand Dragon, Double Wizard, Diamond, Ruby dude on cloud computing, right? And a recognized expert in the field.
It was all the hallucinations from drinking that horrible moonshine. And so he started seeing all these visions, and he's like, "Oh, that's a cloud. Oh, I need to go to the cloud."
whatever it was, But it's like now. I mean, because think about it. When this all first started happening, AWS and Microsoft you couldn't even federate their clouds, right?
No.
They were like, "Oh, we're going to be our own thing." And then Stoney and some said, "Hey, this isn't going to work because you can't tell people." You can't tell people what backends to have. You can't tell, all those things. So then what he did, he went out and got Azure. He went out and learned all that, right? And there's hundreds of thousands of people like that. But a lot of times when you hear the "we fear change" crowd, because that's really what it comes down to, is they don't fear change because it's going to be something different. They fear change because they're going to have to shift and learn something new and not be considered the resident expert, right?
Yeah.
And that's the harder thing from a leadership perspective. Is it's easy if I can sit there and I know everything, but when I have to trust somebody else and put faith in somebody else, or that in part for my well-being, right? Because if I take somebody's opinion at work and it turns out being a very bad decision, I can't go back and say, "This was a terrible decision. Why did you tell me to do this?" I have to own it, because it's part of being a leader. Is you have to have some trust and confidence in your folks, right? And they're going to make mistakes. Everybody does.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't a mistake for me to take their advice. It was a mistake for me not to ask more questions, right? And it shows my ignorance at some point, right? And I'm fine with that as a leader. I'm totally fine. I'm a big question asker, to the point where sometimes I think the guys might be, "Good Lord," like we don't think. Why? Because I got to defend all the decisions of the company to the people that I report to. And the only way I could do that is with knowledge. And I think a lot of people, when they get things, especially in IT, and they start getting certificates, right? I mean, I was on LinkedIn the other day and I saw this guy had literally, I don't know if there's an Agile certificate and a Microsoft cert he doesn't have. It is not, it's like a whole paragraph full of certs, right? Just put Internet Wizard and we know you got them all.
I'm just gonna put A+ certified tech. That's the only thing that's gonna put in. Yeah, CompTIA A+. That's it. That's all I'm gonna put out there. I'm just gonna go get it again. Someone asked me like, "How come you don't? You do all this training, but how come you don't want to get certifications?" Like, I don't need the pieces of paper. Like, how many more pieces of paper do I need? Like, I've got 3 master's degrees, a doctorate. I've held all these certifications. I don't think I need. I take training. I'm on LinkedIn Learning, like it's nobody's. Like.
I love that. I also find it funny when people post their LinkedIn Learning thing. It's like.
I will post some LinkedIn Learnings if it was a really good training class. And I'm like, "Hey, this is something that I think you should look at."
But you're not doing it to say, "Look at me, I'm out there."
Oh yeah.
And say, "Hey, like go check this out. I think it's of value."
Yeah. I don't post like, "Oh, look, I just got this new." I think more junior people should. And the reason I think junior people should post their things like that is, especially if they're, let's say they're like at the credit union, let's say they're a teller and they want to get into marketing. I don't believe that everyone needs to go to school for anything, especially now with you have avenues like LinkedIn Learning. But I need to be able to see the kind of training that you've done that at least says, "Okay, you deserve to interview for this junior marketing position." So, hey, I'm perfect with that. But if you're, a C-level person and you're putting stuff out there like, "Hey, I want to understand, I just took G Suite Essentials." Great. You don't need to post that you're like, I see people that do that all the time. And I just go.
But actually, I don't think you should be posting it, but, we always joke around, like, if you have less than 400 people in your company, you should probably be on Google for work, right? And
hey, if a company like Google can be on Google Workspace, I'm pretty sure every company in the world can be.
Yes. And I'm like,
or Whirlpool, which is a Fortune 50.
Yeah, and on and on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
I think that again, that comes back to the we fear change, right? Because so many people, especially senior leaders now, they grew up with Microsoft Office. They grew up on Windows machines with Microsoft Office, and they're used to that. And then, you know, I was working with a guy a couple of years ago, and big Microsoft guy. And like when we first started sharing stuff out on Google Drive, because when we stood up the company I was running, I was like, hey, I'm going to use Google. He's like, all right, man, whatever you want to do. And he was kind of uncomfortable doing it. Well, it wasn't that he was, you know, definitely not a dumbass. He's a really, really, really intelligent dude. And I finally broke it. It's like he wanted to go in and he wanted to find a folder. He wanted to go into that folder and look at the folder hierarchy. It was like, dude, get off the Windows bus. I said, what is Google really good at? And he's like, what do you mean? I go, what are they known for? And he's like, search. I go, well, there's a big search box up top. I told you what the name of the folder, what the name of the document is we're going to be looking at. Just type it in.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, this is so easy.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there's a reason why about 18 months ago, a bunch of 6-year-olds all were in Google Workspace.
Right.
Because it's so easy a 6-year-old can do it. Which is really kind of funny. I actually said that to one of my my peers because they were having a problem with their Chromebook. And I was like, hey, tens of thousands of 6-year-olds were able to get this thing to work.
Yeah. Google for education.
Yeah. And so now we're going through our business plan, and the thing was up there. It was not the correct, verb, so to speak, but it was, implement public cloud infrastructure. And and it said, Google. And everyone like kind of lost their mind for a moment. And I said, hey, I've already made the decision that our public cloud infrastructure is Google. No, we have to talk about it. And I said, no, we don't have to talk about it. We can talk about if we're moving to Google Workspace or not, which is completely different. But I 100% get to choose which infrastructure our systems are going to be on, and I choose Google. And they're like, oh, well, what's the difference? I was like, you're supposed to know the difference. Like, you are in charge of the strategy and the business plan. Did you read this stuff in there?
Right. We're doing strategery, folks.
Yeah.
I think especially when you start talking about Google, people have a visceral reaction because of Gmail. Right?
I love Gmail.
No, but the Gmail, the free product, not the Google for Workspace implementation of Gmail, right? And I think what they fail to understand is that Gmail and Google Workspace, that enterprise grade products, they are actually on two different networks. There's nothing commingled about it. One of them is, hey, you have a free email service and we are going to scan your emails for relevant ad content because that's how we make money. That's how you get your free email, right? But when you're paying for Google Enterprise, that is on a completely segregated network. Same with all the cloud infrastructure and everything like that. And once people can wrap their heads around the fact that this isn't the creepy crawly search giant that is Google, because here's the thing: Google recognized that they put a lot of effort into combating that thought, that prevalent thought, right? But I can't, you can, if your stuff's on Google Cloud infrastructure, you can do business with Walmart. If your stuff is on Azure, you can do business with Walmart. The first question they're going to ask you when you start saying, hey, do you have anything in the cloud? Well, everybody does now. So you're like, yes. What cloud infrastructure do you use? If you say Amazon, they're going to hang up the phone.
Yep. Yeah, they're not really too happy with Amazon taking their business away from them. That's for sure.
Well, also, I think Amazon, being it's kind of the curse of being first is, the others have had a lot of opportunity to look at what they're doing, and even whether it's cloud or whatever, they're starting to build better mousetraps. And what can Amazon do to kind of genuflect in that direction while still being true to the core of what they built?
Right. It's what was there was a piece in there. Well, it'll come to. Oh, I was going to say. So I was reading this article about Windows 11, and in there, I'm wondering how quickly is Microsoft going to get sued because they're making it almost impossible to change the default browser on Windows 11.
Well, I mean, they went through that with the Internet Explorer 25 years ago, right?
And they're doing it again. Like, hey, it's like impossible for them to remove Edge as the default browser. I'm like,
Right.
and they're because they're Microsoft is now allowing advertisers to push ads directly to Windows 11
Yeah, you got to monetize the dollar somehow, right?
because they're losing money everywhere else. So now they're
Right.
like, wait a minute, like they're making it so like why would anyone want to use Windows? That you don't know what ad like iframe malware was very popular at one point because hey, CNN, all this stuff, they would just throw malware up in the iframes and then boof, you're on CNN's website and now you've got a virus because I mean you didn't have Internet Explorer patch, whatever. So now we're going to give a delivery mechanism to all of these bad actors out there directly to the operating system.
Right.
Nope, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, obviously I'm a big Mac guy, but the next thing I would use is a Chromebook.
I love my Chromebook. I would be using my Chromebook for everything if I could use the video capture device, but right now the Chromebook with Chrome OS does not recognize video capture.
Yeah, I saw that. But I'll tell you what,
So that's what my Mac is over here for. I got the Mac here, Chromebook over there. But I use my Chromebook for everything.
right.
Other than that, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I have like the Lenovo Duets.
Yeah.
$275 comes with the case with the keyboard, and it's a badass little computer.
Yeah,
People always sound like, hey, I want to get a computer for my kid for Christmas or birthday or whatever. I'm like, go get one of those.
I like I said, I use it for just about everything. I actually think Google Docs is far better than Microsoft Word. Far better. It actually reminds me of a true word processor because I can put the appropriate plugin. And that's the great part about what I really like about Workspace is that aspect that they've built a base product and then I can customize it however which way I want because you go to their so to speak app store and I can put plugins to do just about anything.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you.
I love that. Microsoft Word, no, forget it.
Well, I'm not, I run a company, I have to use spreadsheet software, but from a mathematical standpoint, there are less math errors in Google Sheets as opposed to Microsoft Excel. And think about this, we run a lot of the world's financial stuff off of Excel.
Yeah, well, they're losing that more and more because a lot of the data warehouses and the analytics engines, like your Tableaus and things like that, you're doing it all now in the cloud. And so this is another reason why Microsoft is having to push ads to their operating system because people are leaving. They're
I mean, it's like we have some documentation at work that we share. And so our parent company wants everybody to go to Microsoft, right? But we're a Google Workspace shop. And I finally just got, people that I report to just say, I'm like, just give up on the idea. I said, I'll have that, Microsoft account, but internally what we do, we're going to continue to do it the way we're going to do it because we do a lot of stuff real time where everybody's working on a document together. And how cool is that to be able to see who's adding something because then it's a perspective thing. Like, okay, that guy's typing something in. I want to read what they're typing right now. And then I'll make an informed decision on what I'm going to do next, right? And things like that. But after using it for so long now, I'm just the navigation piece of it, ease of navigation, how I get where I'm going, I find to be much more user friendly than even using OneDrive or anything else.
Yeah, that's why with all of the the companies that I'm starting, everything's going to be just on Google. It just makes things. So now, 5 years ago. I wouldn't have done it. Mm-mm.
Right, but that's good on them for the innovation that they've had.
Yep.
Right. What do we really need to do to be competitive?
Yep. 5 years ago, the whole reason to go to at that point it was still called G Suite. The whole reason to go to G Suite then is because you need basic things because you have to have low expenses. Now,
It was $5 a month per user back then.
yeah, now,
Yeah.
whew, I'm trying to, I'm dragging everyone to it. So I had the conversation. I'm like, well, we're going to lose all this productivity. I'm like, okay, I agree with you, but I cannot see where we're going to lose the productivity. So, we're 500-person company, and 300 of them are people that work in the call center and the branches, things like that. They don't use anything but email when they do, and maybe a chat function. So I'm going, well, where are we going to lose productivity? They're like, well, marketing. I'm like, well, they just did the whole strategic plan in G Suite, and they love it. Well, finance. Okay, so 5 people are going to lose some productivity out of 500.
Yeah, while they learn how to use Google Sheets.
5 people. It's like, I don't think we're losing a whole lot of productivity.
And for the most part, the functions that you use and I'm saying like 99%, the functions that the way you do things in Google Sheets is almost identical to what you do in Excel. So the learning curve is not going to be high. And I think the biggest conundrum when people first start using Google for work is, where do I find my data, right? Because they get caught in that hierarchical system of file structure. And it's like, hey, what's the name of the document I'm looking for? That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
What's the family of documents I'm looking for? If I got a folder, what's the name of that folder? And it'll take you right.
Yep, absolutely. Well, my friend, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go make some booze. We're distilling again today. It's so much better to distill when I don't have to worry about the federal agents showing up at my door or at my trailer in the woods. So thanks for joining again, my friend. Everyone out there, thank you so much. There'll be no show next week. I got to travel, or at least next Sunday. I'll be on a plane, and so I guess for most of for most of you, I won't see you until after Thanksgiving. So have a happy Turkey Day, folks.
Everyone, have a good week.